my computer. That way we can kind of keep everything. So I'd like to welcome everyone to our Master Gardener Lunch and Learn today. Um, my name is Chris Luking, and Gail DeVillis is on. We're the program coordinators for Unit 23, and we get a chance to work with the Master Gardeners and Master Naturalists. Today, our host is Rick Wahlfedt, and he's a Master Naturalist. And recently, he has graduated the Master Gardener Training Program. And so we have to congratulate him on that because it was an online class along with another one, Linda. That's a little bit harder when you're not interacting face to face sometimes to finish. So we appreciate that. But he's recently got the lawn care portion of that class. So he's up to date on that. He has a book in front of him. So Rick, would you like to say anything? And then we're going to move into a podcast and kind of get some more information before we start questions. So
Yep.
Rick, are you on? Okay, would you like to say a few words?
Sure. I'm I'm here to learn myself. Turns out I knew some things about lawns, and there's other things that not so much. I was, like I told you yesterday, I got a friend that said, "Yeah, I don't have a lawn, I have a yard." He said there's a difference. So yeah, so we'll see what they got to say. And
okay, so Rick's going to be on our board to kind of answer the questions when we get finished. So we're going to play this podcast, and you guys can see my screen. It's Good Growing podcast, and it's with some of our horticulturalists from the University of Illinois Extension. This one is with Richard Hensel, and I have in the chat box the link to this podcast, and I'll send that out with our survey afterwards. I kind of fast forwarded a little bit through just the introductions in the beginning about weather and everything. So we're going to start it. He's going to talk about turf grass, a little bit about himself and why he likes turf grass, and we're going to listen for about 10 minutes, and then
my background is pretty much horticulture in general, and then kind of specializing in woody ornamentals. And part of one or more of my positions over the years has always got me involved with greens on golf courses and golf courses in general. So turf has just become one of those things that, if you will, I'm known for. And I had the opportunity through an Indiana-Illinois Sea grant to work on and update our extension Lawn Talk website. So I've just always been involved with turf, much more so on the homeowner side the past few years and commercially, but I've in the past also worked with sod producers. So that's kind of the background on turf grass.
So admittedly, I am not a turf person. For my yard, if it's green, it's good enough. But so hypothetically speaking, if I was a turf person, and since my yard is more weeds than it is grass, what could I do to get my lawn looking like my neighbors, or people who would hire kind of companies to take care of that nice green, lush, even landscape?
Well, that's I guess some factors go into that. I always use kind of the 50% rule. If your lawn is more than 50% weeds, you're probably due to just do a do-over and renovate the whole yard, start from the beginning. If it's less than, say, that 50%, or there's areas that are in good shape but others that aren't, then we might do some selective renovation. It's the weeds that you really are concerned with as you go to renovate or redo the lawn. You want to make sure they're totally gone before you resod or even reseed, so that when in the end what you have is a much nicer looking lawn than what you started with. It takes about 2 seasons of good focused management on a seeded lawn to really make it look like it was sodded. So that takes a little more effort. But even if you don't do the good prep that's necessary for even sod, you have weeds coming up through the joints in the sod. You will have perennial weeds like dandelions and other things actually come through the sod. So it's really important that we do that good prep. If the lawn's reasonably good, way less than that 50% weed count, and that's just still unacceptable. Focusing on getting the lawn healthy and competitive before you take a product to control the weeds is critical.
And Richard, I think, was it you that have always said it also depends how fast people drive by your house, depending on how much weeds would be
Yeah.
acceptable. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I called, I chuckle, but I call that you've got a yard that's a 55-mile-an-hour lawn. Looks good at 55. Walk the lawn off the sidewalk, and it doesn't look so good.
Yeah, I think my lawn on an hour lawn. So one question I do have about lawns is that the house we have we have a real kind of lumpy, uneven yard. We got a lot of divots and stuff. And we're kind of out there playing with the kids and running around. You're almost afraid you're going to break ankles. So, not being a turf person, what's something we could do to kind of level that out a little bit and not destroy our ankles?
Well, obviously, for a lot of people, they think about taking a lawn roller and trying to roll down the high spots to match the low spots. And that really isn't the direction we should head. It's more about bringing up the low spots to match the high spots, because just crushing down the high spots causes compaction in the lawn, which will drive more weeds and other things to show up. So we're really talking about top dressing out those parts. You can top dress several times a season as long as it's light, and usually bringing up the lawn takes more than a season to get that accomplished. But as you do that, you are creating, because you've top dressed with the good soil, you're creating an environment that's really going to favor the lawn to come back and grow up in those low areas. If there's a substantial large area that's low, some folks have rented or used a sod cutter and cut their existing lawn out, brought in enough soil and put the sod back down to level it out. One of the, I guess I'll share a caveat here, is that usually we have the idea that we've had all these trees, deciduous and evergreens, dying over the past 4 or 5 years from the heavy drought we had in 2012, and we may have routed out the stump, but all those massive roots that might be 6, 8, 10 inches in diameter finally begin to rot. They collapse, and that can create quite a bit of this unevenness in the yard. So if it's something that's kind of happened over the last short few years, that may be the reason, and nothing else. And there's not a lot we can do with that until the roots totally collapse and we can fill in those low spots. And you got a clue that that's what's going on, because the low spots will run above where the root was. So they're in runs. They're just not a random spot.
Now, Richard, I just moved into a new house and our lawn needs some rehab. So we have some bare spots throughout the yard. We also have some weeds that we want to control. And so we moved in late May. So right away, we started trying to fill in those bare spots, but we quickly figured out if we missed any sprinkler or watering of the lawn, our grass died quickly. So that's something that we're going to try to take care of this fall. What all should we do to rehab our yard?
Well, fall can actually be I won't say a better time, but it's an easier time when you try to reseed in the spring, and you're going to be fighting the summer weather, which is just going to get hotter and hotter as the summer goes along. And our grasses that we sow are typically cool season grasses in Illinois. So you're going against nature in terms of its preferred environment, where in the fall, if we sow somewhere between probably the middle of August through the middle of September, it might differ a little bit where you are. You're going into cooler, wetter weather, the kind of weather that the grasses really like and really enjoy. So it's an easier time for us in terms of management. Take those bare spots. They ought to be worked up and slightly roughened so that as the grass seed germinates, it can immediately get its little root radical right down into the dirt, and that is a great way to get the grass seed started. The other point that you mentioned is the water. Grass seed should be watered frequently but very lightly. Grass seed doesn't come with any level of protection, so if you overwater it and the soils are overly wet, chances are the seed may rot before it ever gets a chance to germinate. So we want a frequent light watering on that, and as they as you will begin to see that green peach fuzz, if you will, show up in the yard, and the grass grows and fills in more and more, then our frequent light waterings can kind of be backed off, and then you're going to think about watering the newer spots like you'd water your regular lawn, which would be infrequently but more deeply. And then mow the lawn just as soon as it needs to be mowed, because that helps the grass plant thicken up by generating rhizomes or tillers at the crown of the grass plant, depending upon what you've sown.
Now I've seen like some people use grass plugs. Is that something that you could do in the fall too, or can you do that pretty much year round?
If we're talking about grass plugs, we're probably addressing the really warm season grasses. I'm going to guess, and it is a guess, Zoysia grass, and those are often started with plugs or sprigs. And seeing as they like the hot weather, that's their favorite time of year. Sprigging in the mid to late summer is a perfectly adequate time. There's plenty of heat for it to get established. Warm season grasses, though, will go dormant pretty early, so you want to get the plugs in while they can still establish themselves before any kind of cool weather shows up, because they're likely to go dormant very quickly at that point.
Okay, Rich.
Okay, so we wanted everyone to kind of get a little bit of information. We thought this was a great way to kind of stop, kind of give you some information that Richard has. You can, in the poll box, Rick, I'm going to go ahead and make everyone, we can see everyone now. So we want to really open this up to discussion and give everybody plenty of time to ask questions if they have questions. Can everybody open up? And I'm going to have you unmute. Rick, can you unmute? And Lori, everybody, if you guys can go ahead and unmute yourselves, and we can have you open to ask questions. I'm having you unmute. There you go. All right. And if you can see, I'm going to try to make it more of a gallery view for everyone, so we can kind of see everyone's face if you want to, or open up. And does anyone have questions about the grasses? Rick and Lori are on. They're able to help us out and kind of get us going.
I did see a few things come up in chat when we were discussing.
Okay. All right. So can you start with the first thing that you had?
Sure. I was just, they're not particular questions or comments on my asking about how much lawn people have, et cetera. So we've got Kathy Kingsley. She's trying to get more pollinators as they destroy the weedy patches in the yard. And Gordon, just this morning, is reestablishing or starting a brand new pollinator garden. So he's right on with doing that.
Okay, can you repeat that question in the beginning? That way everyone that maybe came on a little later would have a chance to comment a little bit more about it.
Sure. Well, we were just waiting and kind of doing the hanging out, waiting a couple minutes before we got started. And I was interested in knowing how many people are really in love with their lawn, or how many are working to convert their lawns to some extent, maybe putting in more pollinators in other gardens. And we had a couple of comments of people that were actually doing that, because there's always, there's a love-hate relationship with the lawn. We probably think, as some of you might have listened to Doug Talamay or read some of his books, taking out some of that lawn, but you've got to have some, and you want what you have, you want to have it really good quality. And that's what this call's about today. But I was just wondering, what percentage of lawns people have, and are they taking some of their lawns out and putting in other types of plantings?
All right. Was there, so does anybody else have the 55-mile-an-hour lawn, or does everybody have a great green little maybe patch in the beginning in the middle of in front of your house, or how are you guys doing with that? I kind of was interested with Rick about the trees that were dying, that was causing some of the unlevelness there. Do you have any more comments about that? Do you think that that's a reason, or do you think it might be moles or anything else that might be a problem?
Oh, I don't know. We had a big oak tree just, got chopped down last year because it was dead, but I've had others. I noticed that we got a pine tree, and grass doesn't like pine needles. Got sweet gum trees. They don't like sweet gum. Grass doesn't like sweet gum balls. So I don't know. I tried a patch or redid a planter box out front and put grass in it, and everything was going great. And then it got dry, and then it died, So I'm gonna try it again this fall, but I'm thinking I might try something besides bluegrass and fescue because it looked good for a little while.
So we do have a question in the chat box. Jamie, she's trying to get rid of her weeds in a more environmentally friendly way. She doesn't want to coat her lawn with Roundup or fertilizers, but I'm sure her neighbors would not like the dandelions. Well, the nice thing about dandelions is that you can spot treat those and you don't have to coat the entire lawn. And there's obviously the physical way of taking those out. But does anybody else want to offer some organic methods to helping out Jamie?
Well, to get ready for my pollinator garden, I put down black plastic for nearly a month. And that section was pretty clean pretty clear when I tilled it. I did just a light till is what they recommended, and pulled out all the probably more of the crabgrass and that was still left, just the roots.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll see, of course, over time, it's only been a few weeks now that I've started this project, and none of them have come back yet, but it's been so dry, I'm not expecting.
Right, dry in a changing season.
Yeah.
Gordon did was called solarizing, and that works great when you're establishing a new garden, but that may not work for Jamie just because she has that full lawn and wants to get rid of just the
Yeah, if it's in the whole lawn, it's tough.
Yeah, the best thing, one of the best things organic, and I hope some other people will chime in.
Gail, Lori's on.
Okay, I was just gonna say one thing and then I'll I definitely want Lori to answer. That's what, I was just gonna finish my sentence, but just make sure you're keeping your lawns long. Don't cut them too short because that's obviously, and I think a lot of people are aware of that already, that the nice long lush lawn really does choke out the weeds. And then obviously keep them from going to seed. So yeah, definitely, Lori, looking forward to hearing your answers.
So there are several ways that they already mentioned is the soil solarization that works really well. Dandelions are broadleafed weeds, grasses are monocots. And so I know you don't want to do a whole lawn and spray with whole fertilizers and all that, but because dandelions are broadleaf, there are specific product on the market that you can buy like at Lowe's and Home Depot. And there are some organic products that work the same that will just attack those dandelions. So you can spot treat those very easily. If you have a spray bottle, you can just spot treat those dandelions. But then again, it's going to depend on how many you have in your yard and how big your yard is. Trying to do it organically can be difficult. Can be very difficult.
Keep plugging along, right, Lori?
Yep, that's all you can do is just, and then just manual removal of the dandelions. And if you're going to try and do that, then you're going to have to get rid of the dandelions before the flowers appear or before they actually go to seed, because that's what's germinating for the following year.
Gordon, this is Larry Boyles. What are you planting in your pollinator garden? Did you buy seed or?
Yeah, I bought a mix, Larry.
Okay.
And it has like 22 or so different things in it.
Okay.
And I've got the list, but not in front of me.
That's fine.
But
did you buy that locally?
Not, well, it was a Midwest mix. It wasn't locally. It was from out of I believe it was Ohio.
Yeah.
But I
know Hoffman Seed House, I think, has some mixes, but I'm not sure what they have. But anyhow, I'm just curious. I'm thinking about converting some of my lawn into a natural area. I'm not
Yeah.
sure what.
I thought I might go up to Arnie's and see if if he had anything I could, add to it. But I'm going to be out searching for seeds here pretty soon.
Yeah.
Since they're kind of, I guess like, that's one of the questions, if anyone wants to kind of chime in, some of you are also master naturalists. Is there a native grass that you like to grow that you want to maybe convert some of your lawn into? Would you want to convert using certain grasses like little blue stem or big blue stem, or any of those that you guys really have planted that you would recommend, I guess? Does anybody want to chime in? Kathy, maybe you or Carla?
I'm not in that area, but this Larry, I have a native prairie. Big blue stem is awful aggressive, and boy, you can't. I'm going with little blue stem more than the big, because it'll take over. I have a nephew who used to work for the conservation department. He said if you burn it in the spring, you'll have more flowers, and if you burn it in the fall, you have more grasses. And the grasses is kind of taking over my area, because I'm burn it in the fall, you have more flowers. Burn it in the spring, you have more grasses. Is what he told. But
Okay.
Christina, this
Yeah.
is Carla Hazelhurst. I'm late to the party. I
I'm
couldn't
sorry.
get in.
Yeah, I can see you in the waiting room. I think Gail figured it out for us and got you in. So thank you, Gail.
You're welcome.
We do absolutely zero to our lawn except mow it high. It is a mixture of crown vetch, creeping Charlie, clover, original grass seed. Whatever flies in my yard gets to stay, and we can just cut it off. So I have no information on lawn.
Okay.
everything's dead in my yard, even my grasses. I have some fescue that has a little color to it, but everything, Zoysia grass is even turned brown.
Yeah, well, I think they said even the month of October, we're not supposed to have very much moisture or chance of rain. So I think we're going to see a little bit of drought concern for all the grasses and definitely some of the trees also. If they were newly planted, I'm afraid you're going to see a little problem with that.
As far as native options, I tried an experiment this spring with buffalo grass. Unfortunately, I didn't read up enough on it, and I planted it way too early. It's a warm season grass, and I planted it when it was still way too cold. So I got a lot of weeds up instead. We had taken down my son's play set area, scraped off all of the mulch and everything that was on there, and wanted to replant it with something. So definitely get educated on what you're planting a little bit better than I did when you're going to put something like that in there. But sedges can also be a good option that are native, and there are many sedges that like shady conditions. So for people who have lots of shady areas in their yard who can't get grass to grow, there are some native sedges that are good options for that, depending on whether it's wet or dry. There's a couple of different ones you can use.
Thank you. And Jamie, would you mind introducing yourself too? So a lot of these are our master gardeners that are on board in that way. We're going to bring you forward maybe in a few more programs, but maybe if you'd introduce that way, they kind of know who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Jamie Viebach. I'm the Will County Director for the Conservation Foundation. And I'm also the host of our Conservation Online webinar series that we've been doing ever since, March, when the whole shutdown thing happened. My spring should have been filled with presentations and business expos and speaking at libraries and all that kind of stuff. And with the shutdown, I didn't have a whole lot to do. So I came up with the idea to start this webinar series. And so sometimes I lead the webinars, sometimes I have guest hosts, but we've been doing this weekly webinar series now for like 6 months, and it's been super popular. So it's been really cool to do.
Yeah, and I've attended a few of them on rain gardens and different topic areas, and we definitely are going to introduce Jamie more, hopefully in the spring, with some rain gardens and some other programming. So she happens to be on board today, so I just wanted to introduce you so that everybody kind of can see who you
Thank
are.
you. I had to go run a comb through my hair before I turn my camera on.
It's nice to meet you, Jamie. Do you have a link to any of the recordings from your sessions this summer? Because I think a lot of people would be interested in those. We could put them in the chat.
Yeah, absolutely. They're all saved on our YouTube channel. So I'll put the link to our YouTube channel on there and you can go check them all out. Yeah, with very few exceptions, I managed to get them all recorded and uploaded there. So I've tried to have a really nice mix of topics. So, you know, everything from rain gardens, pollinator gardens, removing invasive plants. We even had somebody talk about astronomy and bird watching. And so, you know, I've tried to get a really nice mix of conservation themed topics in my webinars.
Sounds great. Well, we'll look forward to that link.
Well, Rick, is there anything more you want to tell them about turf grass that you learned from maybe having the training just recently, or Linda's even on? Is there anything that really stood out to you guys during the lawn care training that you may want to mention?
Soil testing.
Soil testing? Yeah. So that one is definitely, I did see that Jefferson County Soil and Water District, they have increased their price for soil tests to $7.50, but that gives you the pH, and it'll give you the nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium levels, and I think that was the main ones that they hit for that. And you can increase the amount, you know, if you want more of the micronutrients and everything. But soil testing is very important. And I think that sometimes that's something that we miss whenever we are trying to establish an area. Linda, is there anything you want to add?
Well, I learned why our home was constructed 5 years ago. And I learned why we've had trouble in some areas with our lawn, trying to get it established. From, I think it was compacted, some of it from the construction.
Yeah, and that makes sense that, you know, if it's a newly constructed with the compaction.
Yes, and we didn't have it fine raked enough when we put in a lawn. So our backyard, we have issues. And my husband loves to work on the lawn. So that's more his area. So we just had it aerated and seeded at the wrong time because now we haven't had rain. So I don't know if our seed is gonna come up. We have 2.5 acres of yard, so we have problem watering, trying to get to every area. And anyway, that's been our project, trying to get the seed to germinate.
Wow. Well, I don't know, Gail, is there, the chats are kind of coming in. Do you want to grab those?
Well, we got Kathy is talking about crabgrass, and she's got a full yard of crabgrass, quackgrass, white clover, and question marks, meaning we guess we don't know what they are. She said there's more weed yard, dry, compacted soil. I'm getting overwhelmed on where to start and get rid of these weeds and to put in some native grasses and sedges. The one thing is if you're going to do any kind of to reestablish a lawn or whatnot, this is the time to do it. And we're getting late now, but September, early October, this is the time of year to do it. I would never try to rejuvenate a lawn in the spring because all you're going to do is wake up those weed seeds that are laying dormant. Rain would have been very helpful for to take care of your project. You may need to kill out, if there's more than 50% weed and not grass, you're probably going to need to do a little rejuvenation. Overseeding is always helpful, but as people mentioned, not having the moisture, that's one thought. Does anybody else want to share in on some comments on that? Diane and Bill also agreed with that, talking about if it's over, I didn't see that until just now. 50% more weeds, you really need to knock it down and start over. So, but that's a fall project. Even if you don't like it, I would probably still wait till the following fall if you can't do anything more this fall, because spring, you're just going to go backwards. It's really tough in the spring.
The other thing is if you have a big yard, you know, you don't want to try and do it all at once. You may want to try and do it in sections. So this fall, you still have time, a little bit of time, depending on where you live, to be able to do a small renovation on an area, whether it's going to kill the grass and plant your any type of natives that you're looking at, or cool season, warm season grass mixes, whatever you're going to put. But trying to do the whole thing all at once may be a little unyieldy, depending on how much yard you have.
Yeah, that's a great point. Even if you did front yard, side yard type thing, that's because no one wants to go back to no grass or no vegetation. It's a great idea.
Yep. And the grass that's already been planted and because it hasn't been growing because of rain, the grass will sit there. Once it rains, it will start to germinate. You may not get as good of a germination rate as you did if it had rained when you planted the grass, but those grass seeds are still there unless the birds came and ate them. And it's just kind of sitting there waiting for the environments to be right. So don't count out any grass growing at all in those seeds that you planted. You will get it once the rains start. You will get some grass growing. Now, the biggest problem with that is that if we don't get rain until October, like end of October or November, when it starts getting cold as well, then the grass doesn't become established and you'll have to start over in the spring.
How late in Southern Illinois should we keep watering?
In my area, I have people watering through the mid to end of November, and I live down in Williamson County.
Okay.
So it depends. Yeah, we're going to be expecting some rain probably within the next 2 weeks or so. But between now and then, I would probably do some sort of light or just let it sit and wait until the rains come.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And hopefully we won't get those flooding rains.
Yes.
So I have another question. So Gordon and anyone else that's doing a rain garden or a pollinator area, what is the best way to kind of, I guess, and crop that, but have your lawn go to it so it doesn't like have crabgrass or anything that kind of gets into your pollinator area and overtakes it before that seed can get established? Is there a good way to have a border around it, or is there like a planting you can do in between your grass and your newly established area? Is there something you would recommend anybody?
That's a good question. That's one that I've had myself. I've got a lot of prairie drop seed on and I thought I might line part of the outer border with prairie drop seed to see if that slowed down the crabgrass. I'm not sure it will or not.
So that might be more established plants around the border,
Right.
or is that seed itself?
Well, I've got both. I tried planting some of the seed. It takes a while. I don't know the whole cycle on prairie drop seed, how long it, if it has to go through cold or what. But that's one of the things I've been reading up on. But I do have a lot of the plants. I have an excess of plants.
That's a nice thing to have.
It is. It is.
Kathy Kingsley did comment a little bit on what Lori said also, so we're kind of bouncing back and forth here a little, but she also does small sections of spraying and kills them in the fall, and then in the spring she may lay some seed down of native grasses. And feel free to open up your mic if you want to expand on that, Kathy, but otherwise I just read that as posted.
So you can spray the sections with weed killer if you want. The problem with some of those weed killers, like if you're using Roundup or 2,4-D or something like that, it may not kill the grasses at the first spray. And so if you spray the sections with weed killer, let it lay over during the winter, and then seed in the spring and the native grass seeds, you're still going to have weeds in that area. If you're trying to plant native grass seeds, I would recommend trying to either soil solarize, meaning put a plastic over the area that you're trying to seed for a good full summer, and then plant your natives the next year. So what you're trying to do is to make sure that your soil pH and the nutrients are there, and the weed seeds are pretty much gone before you even start planting your natives. Otherwise, you're going to get those weeds growing within your natives. So try and control it before you even plant those.
Thank you.
Yep. And the other thing is that if you spray the sections with weed killer, if it's early enough, you can go ahead and spray them. And then probably in about 3 weeks, you may see some new germination of the weeds. You can go ahead and spray those again if you want to use a weed killer on that. And then that will get those germinating, some of those germinating seeds. But remember, every time you till that soil, you're bringing up more weed seeds.
And since we are talking late fall together about lawns and weeds, we haven't really talked about timing. So I know Kathy mentioned that she sprays that. Most of your weed killers, if you read the label, they're going to want you to have temperatures 50 or above in the evening to have them be adequate. So I thought I'd throw that in. You might want to read your label if you're using a product that's new to you, because temperature, especially this time of year, the plants normally have to be actively growing, and they recommend 50 or above. So just keep that in mind, because we haven't talked about timing. So that might be something of interest to people.
Mm-hmm.
And Gordon, it looks like Jamie added to the chat box the Conservation Foundation's Native Plant Guide. There's a link there that gives you some more information, and because you were talking about prairie drop seed, that might give you some more information about that.
Good,
I
thank you.
didn't pull it up, but that might be a good link to go back to. I'm going to save it and go back to that link later and pull that up. So that'll be something we can forward out to everybody if they want that. Thank you, Jamie. Rick, is there anything else you want to add?
Well, just, I was gonna say, you said that down where you are, the soil testing is more expensive than it used to be.
It's raised 50 cents
Okay,
from
well,
last year.
anyway, they've got friends, actually, it's his son started a business here a few years ago. I actually helped him set up their lab. It's out east of Centray on 161. It's Southern Illinois Ag Solutions,
Okay.
and they do their testing right there.
Okay.
I'm glad you brought that up, because we do have people on from quite a few distance areas. So different soil labs have, do different choices. The one that Rick just recommended, they will, when you do for a homeowner, they will also give you the analysis breakdown and what to do to correct it, which is half the battle for some folks who don't know how to read a soil test results. And they will do that in the in their costs. It's included.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, yay. I finally figured out the right connection. Anyway, this is back about Gordon and about his pollinator area and keeping the weeds from encroaching that. Is that what I understood, Gordon?
Yes.
Okay, what I do is I have me a little weed whacker, and it may not look real pretty, but I go in and I weed whack it as close as I can around. And then I'm not real big on landscaping stuff that you buy at the big box stores. So, but I've like put in like a few rocks here and there to kind of make more of enclosure. I don't know if that would help you or not, but I like my weed whacker.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. Thank you.
I mean, I scalp it.
I understand. I understand. Hey, I wanted to bring up, I don't know if anyone else did this seminar series. It was a 3 webinar series. It's early in October, but I would recommend, and maybe Jamie could actually help. I don't know how to put that website up, but it was a nuisance. It was called Which Grass is Which?
Yeah.
That, if you could put that one up, Chris, that one was really, all 3 days were just great. Each day was about something slightly different, but and the first session went quite long. You know, they normally try to keep them in an hour frame, but I think it was a good hour and a half, and it just kept going. But it was really a fun one. And,
Yeah.
did you see it too, Gail?
I did, and Erin, of course, is a wonderful instructor and very thorough. I felt like I was back in turf grass because she talked about all the components of a plant and the parts, if you will, to identify the grass itself. And then she repeated that in each session. You can only watch one, and since it's the lawns today, they choose to watch just the nuisance one. She did, you can watch one without having the series and get everything out of it. And she did a fabulous job. And those are all on YouTube. I don't know if.
Right, Jamie just put up the
There you go. Yeah.
connection. I see that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to put you on payroll, Jamie.
I know.
Especially if you want to use them for, you know, for naturalizing an area. I thought that was really. She's got. It was so good. As I take a daily walk, and every day as I walk down the road, I've got that website that they suggested. I'm trying to identify all these grasses as I walk by.
Yeah. This is a good time. This is a good time. I know that. And Jamie, you brought up sedges earlier. Chris Benda has often, and Chris Benda being the botanizer, and he works out of Southern Illinois, and he has his own website, et cetera. But they had some great trainings through the Southern Illinois Native Plant Society on hedges. And hedges, excuse me, I'm saying hedges and sedges. I'm trying to be a poet here. Sedges. And that was so popular that I know that will be repeated. So you want to look at that information if they're going to offer that again. It's just like what she did for grasses, except for it's for sedges. Careful what I say.
I also watched the 3 series of Which Grass is Which, and I learned a lot. Now I just have to go out and find some actual grass and not crabgrass, which I know that, but other kind of grasses and identify it, put my, make my, do my clinicals, I guess, right?
There you go. Get your field work done.
Well, we did this a little different than we normally have. We wanted to kind of open it up to questions, and we thank everyone for asking a lot of questions and kind of giving some input. Rick, thank you, and everyone else for kind of joining us, Lori and Jamie for giving us some information today. Does anybody have any last questions before we kind of break today?
And I appreciate everyone participating today. I know it's mostly to be open for questions. So as we plan the winter and spring sessions, if someone has a particular topic they'd like to either assist with, but more importantly, would like us to hear us repeat, by all means, type in some topics or talk with Chris or myself individually. We want to make sure we're selecting topics that you want to learn about and share about.
And Jamie, we have your list. We're going to kind of, Gail and I have a meeting in the 1st of November to kind of go over our spring topics. So we're definitely going to use some of your topic areas that you're, giving us as choices, like conservation at home and some of those topics too. Thank you.
Yeah, glad to help.
Well, Rick, thank you for volunteering to be our host today. He was kind of drafted in a little bit, maybe. I don't know. But we want to thank everybody for always, helping us out and volunteering for our panel and just the discussion. We really wanted to make this be questions that you guys have or the public has and give them some good information. I think we had some great information shared today. Again, if you have any comments on a topic area you'd like to learn more about. We know the grass is in our Master Gardener handbook, and we definitely, it's maybe not a topic area that everybody's as familiar with or interested in, but definitely need to be discussed because it is, definitely everybody has it every day. So please let us know anything else that you guys have or questions that you have, and we thank you everyone for joining us today. Gail, do you want to say anything before we?
No, we're in great shape. Jamie, I appreciate you coming on. I just make a quick announcement. Chris and I will be sending out information, but next week we will have our Master Gardener unit meeting. Normally I wouldn't make that kind of announcement, but we are amongst ourselves. And that's going to, you'll see, you'll get an invite here in the mail. So we'll be talking to you about that. That's next Tuesday night.
All right. Well, thanks everybody again for helping us out today.
All righty.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.